you?
Well, I'm good, Mary.
Well, we had a good lunch today.
Yes, we did.
Yeah, it's been a while since we've needed to have lunch actually. Yeah, last time Ron was here, it was when we had the freeze in Houston, and you came to visit
I think I
me.
came for Thanksgiving once.
Yes,
Yeah.
no, you're correct. You're
Yeah.
correct. But one of the times,
Oh, yeah.
I guess that we had a lunch pending. So, well, great. I'm so happy to have you here on our podcast. And I wanted to see if I can pick your brain on the ISO 50001 standard. By the way, awesome shirt that you're wearing.
Yeah, some nice lady gave you that.
Yeah, so awesome. So Ron, but before we get started, tell us a little bit about you. How you started in the whole management system. Tell us, I know you're from Montana. Let's go way back.
Yeah, I was hired on with a company called Bellwell, who became Schlumberger.
Oh, really?
And
I didn't know
then
that the strawberry was somebody else before.
Well, Schlumberger gobbles up others.
Yeah.
So,
Now, what did you go to school? I guess right out of
yeah, right out of
college.
right. I went to high school, went to school at Montana State,
Mm.
got an engineering degree, went to work for Schlumberger and worked in the field at first, which is what they always did with their engineers.
I see. How long were you in the field?
Well, off and on for the better part of 18 months to 2 years, and then always had to go back. But as a truck driver, that was what they did to you. Congratulations,
Really?
you got an engineering degree.
So when
Here's
you
your
say-
truck.
When you say field, you were going to a rig site or?
Fracturing, acidizing, cementing, equipment rental.
Yeah. Now was it all in around
Oh
Montana?
no. It's,
Where
it's all those.
around the beautiful
All
lakes?
the places like Midlands and Rock Spring, Wyoming,
Oh.
and Oklahoma.
So some of these were like totally new for you, or did you travel
yeah.
with your family?
Oh, yeah.
You were like,
No, I was single. You got to be single when you do that job.
you probably were like, who lives around Midland? Right?
Well, yeah, Midland was special. Midland is special. Yes.
Yeah.
So, but my background is engineering, and I was the manufacturing manager in Tulsa, Oklahoma, where we made our trucks. And Schlumberger decided they should get a ISO certification. This is way back in about 90, 91.
Yeah, because that's when ISO came.
Yeah, and
yes,
it was
from Europe.
Oh,
right?
it was pretty special.
Right.
We didn't know quite what to do. Nobody knew what to do. The certificate ended up being certificate number 13. So
Wow, that's
it's a long time ago.
amazing. Now this is when ISO had 9001, 9002,
Yeah,
9000.
yeah.
Okay, which one were you guys?
I don't know. 9,000, I think, was the manufacturer.
Because people were trying to get, even back then, out of the engineering design, so you could be 9002, and if you were just maybe not even manufacturing, you could be 9003, I think.
Yeah, your knowledge exceeds.
Yeah.
All I know is we started by writing down everything. I mean,
Yes.
how do you make the coffee? How do you put
Yeah. All right.
the, you know,
Back then, people
But
went out
we
of
didn't
town.
really- auditors didn't really know how you audited, in the beginning, and we didn't know what to do. We started by writing everything down. Of course, that made everybody better, just have everything written.
Yes. So you participated, you were part of this initial team.
Oh yeah, that was
Yeah.
part of my problem.
And so you helped the Oklahoma team get certified pretty much, I guess.
Yeah, and then it just grew from there. People that are familiar with this will understand what I say when I say that you'll never get away from it the rest of your career.
They label you.
They will hunt you down, and you will be participating in that forever.
And that's funny because for some people it was really, a great thing. Like I'm an industrial engineer. People understood that I worked on processes, and as soon as ISO came to our company, they were like, everything Miriam has been doing, let's grab it,
It's
right?
a fit, yeah.
But and then of course I grew in the quality field, but there's people that wanted to get out of it. Eventually they was just like, that's the stigma. You are a quality person. Yeah. So tell me what happened after Oklahoma, because I know you went to Paris.
Oh, I
too.
was all over.
Yeah. So what did you do after that? And went and
Oh,
certify them or work on other
Oh yeah, they
areas?
were certified, and then I did lots of different engineering and design jobs, and they always bring you back because there's always somebody that's
Yeah.
You got to have certification or somebody needs auditing. So I ended up auditing all over the world, and some ones better experienced than others. And trying to combine engineering with ISO and API, and it's a good
Now,
fit.
how did you get into API? When did API became a requirement for Schlumberger then?
Oh, they were in and out on it from the beginning, and they go into it for a while, and then it would have less interest for them, and they'd be just ISO, and then it would go. It depends on what. Really, my impression is it depends on what customers are going to pay for.
Now, who was the registrar? Like when you were helping DMV, right? They were big. Yeah, it was for us too. They got a leg up there. Yeah. Because of being already in inspection, I guess.
I think DMV was primarily who some used.
Yes. So you've been doing all of this work on ISO, API. Well, so eventually you left Schlumberger, and then what?
Yeah, but there's something that's relevant here in that part of a job that I had at one time was I was down there in Sugar Land and had the requirements for environmental and safety and 9001.
Okay.
And so the meshes together, and it didn't mesh together particularly well at that time. And I think what people don't understand is that some of the early versions of 45,001 and 14,001, they were awkward. And I think a lot of companies were this way. We as Schlumberger had our own, but it was a requirement of mine.
Also, okay, so you got into the environmental and safety.
Yeah, I had to do that, and
That
we had chemical labs.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have a chemical lab, across the street from the city of Sugar Land's offices there, they want to make sure you're doing things very well.
And this is probably when Sugar Land was growing.
Oh, yeah,
This Sugar Land is about, just 20 miles maybe southwest of Houston, right?
Yeah.
So growing, beautiful, beautiful city. Yeah, it's all probably part of large Houston. Yeah.
But that's how I ended up in 9,014, 45, and then API, because it all rolled in together.
Yes.
And then when 50,000 came out, people started hitting me up.
So you
for
got
training.
to 50,000 at Schlumberger too?
No.
Oh, okay. That was after.
No,
yes.
that was
I
after.
see. Oh, I see. But
That
you had all the background of the environment. Okay, so let's talk about. So this is what one thing I wanted to discuss is give our listeners an introduction to ISO 50001, the energy management system, and get to know about it. So, well, tell us how you got into it, because it's not very mainstream. Like there's not a lot of people actually or companies getting certified, but it's something that we believe definitely important. But tell us a little bit of what you've seen and how you got started.
I was contacted to teach it,
Mm-hmm.
and I said, I don't know what it is. So then I got certified.
Oh, I see.
And I taught it, and then people didn't know where it was really going to go from there.
Mm-hmm.
And I found the primary interest was out of Europe. I don't know where it is now, but it was
Yes, Europe always driving
a few years ago. Yeah.
Savings, net zero, which you know what happened to recently in Spain and Portugal.
Yeah.
Net zero. Yes. But no, that's good, and I think that's what you have there, right? It's
Oh
a
yes,
copy of the
you told me to
standard.
hold this. So
Yes.
I
see.
sleep with this shoe.
I want to see if it is a legitimate copy, because a lot of our clients have been getting because their copies are really copy of a copy or copies being shared, and we have another video where we are telling people that you have to make sure that you know if it is a legitimate copy. But anyways, this is the copy of the ISO.
So this was a trick. If I
Yeah.
had a copy, you were going to report me to the authorities.
Yeah, we'll write you a fund. No, this is great to hear, because energy, just like information security, we think that these are standards that are going to take off and that companies are going to want to get certified to. But in reality, there's just a lot to do. If a company is way on their way to be, good stewards of the environment, but also just companies that already have their maybe quality management system in great shape and it's just kind of cruising, maybe they can aspire to go for another standard, right? That's what my thought would be. But I have my first question was, why do you think an organization would want to get certified for 50001? Is it always, from what you have seen, is it a requirement like their customer requires it, or is it because a regulatory they're mandated? What have you seen the drivers?
In the people that I have helped with certification, it's the first one would be, that does come up is they want to be more responsible stewards. There is some of that. The one this is an ISO cert that can make some pretty direct financial savings because companies don't know how they're using their power. How the power is used. They'll just know a large number coming into the plant, but they won't know why, or they won't know how it's used from there. And then the other reason that I've run into quite a few times is because they were subsidiaries from a European company, and so it's what I call because the mothership said so.
The powers of these, like you gotta get certified.
You will be certified.
Yeah. So this then will benefit mostly companies who have high power usage.
Okay, so that's a really fair question, because if you take sometimes like a hotel, okay, and sometimes like a recent one was a senior living center. I mean, it's pretty limited on where you're going to go with that. After you take care of the power that goes into the air conditioning, the HVAC systems,
and the heating, really, where they are more
and the dryers maybe and something like that. In some applications, it's pretty limited. Where it makes the biggest impact is like at a copper smelting or something like this, where you take in huge power usage, and you come across things that, okay, here's a furnace that runs at 1750 degrees. Now we're shut down for 3 days. Do I leave it at 1750? Do I turn it off completely? Do I bring it down to 1,000 degrees? And you have to do some engineering, and you have to work it. And this is the kind of thing you're encouraged to do, is you look at those kind of things and you decide, well, what makes sense? What's the money saver? And then what can we improve? What can we go with higher efficiency on?
So you will think that then it is companies that are already way up in the food chain of being, I guess, having a good understanding of management system and what is to improve, and having a team that they can dedicate to do some homework, I guess, right?
Yeah, this is a little more engineering centric than the other standards, and it sometimes focuses more on engineering and facilities than it's a little bit different group that's doing this.
So another question I had is, is there any way, when you say, they have to do all this engineering work, at least to know, I mean, are there any tools? Like, how do they track their utilities, or how can they do an energy audit to know where all this energy is
that's the first thing that you have to do. You have to do a baseline.
Baseline, yes.
And you have to decide what your baseline is. And that's oftentimes done through meters, either permanent or temporary.
I see, okay.
This is where I learned for the ISO people out there on calibration on the electric meters.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when are you going to calibrate that? Well, tracing it down with companies that make the meters, they recommend maybe every 5 or maybe 25 years or something. They last long. Apparently, you don't need to calibrate them. But what you have to do is you have to determine what your energy baseline is, and then you have to determine what makes up the constituent parts of where the energy, what is using all this energy, right? What are your high energy users? And then you have to somehow relate it to, or normalize it to your production or to your product mix, to the weather, you have to be able to do that so that you can get what you're really.
Now, on your, I guess, your experience, you've performed some baseline audits, I guess. And you perform audits later, I guess that's the idea.
That's the idea, is that you need to determine what your significant energy users are. And most people have a pretty good idea, but they don't have them measured. So you've got to find a way to measure them. And then from that, you'll do the baseline. And then once you've got the baseline, like all the other ISO standards, you have to improve.
I see, yes.
And so then they create projects to improve from there.
So does the standard follow the same framework as the other standards, ISO 9001-14, which is all based on the common framework, or is it still?
No, it's absolutely the same.
It's okay.
It's absolutely the same.
Okay.
It runs in you'll run the same
So you
management
could
reviews.
integrate,
It's
management review.
very.
Yeah. So you could possibly have a certified QHSC, no, EM, right?
Yeah.
I see. Now, so do they have a management representative or a champion for the energy management?
Usually you have to do it somehow, but it's more likely a person that's
facilities, maybe, or engineer.
In engineering or facilities.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's not. Oftentimes there's not an existing position that does this, but obviously you've got to, that person, if they're in engineering, they're still relying on the quality manager or whoever to
learn the management system.
Yeah, and they'll concentrate only on the measurement and the engineering projects.
I see. Now I have this term, and ISO and API standards are not short on terms, so we gotta have some terms, and here is one. SEUs, like significant energy uses.
Right.
Tell us about this. How can a company identify their significant energy uses and even prioritize them?
Yeah, so everybody pretty much knows. They have a gut feel. But then what you're encouraged to do and what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to make some measurements. And some cases it's pretty easy. Like when we talked about a smelting company, there's big furnaces. But in situations, there's a whole factory floor of different kinds of electric motors and heating elements and things like that. You have to do some study. Mm-hmm. You're going to have to, you can do it temporarily. You can put, you know what we're taking in this much electric power, and then it's divided up amongst these other machines, and you have to go to the other machines and take measurements. Mm-hmm. And then sometimes they'll install permanent measuring equipment there. Sometimes they'll just measure it, periodically throughout the year to see whether it's lining up with their estimates that they had before. It might be that this machine is always 15% of our power.
I see, yeah. Very good. So then they can, once they narrow where the, significant energy use is, and they can try to, make this machine or the process more efficient or modify something.
It's like all the other ISO standards, it's risk-based, right? Let's put the effort where you're getting the most bang for the buck, and you're only going to get so much return out of changing all your lights to LEDs.
Yeah.
Compared to converting something over like converting a diesel-powered compressors to electric compressors or something like that.
Yes, that's right. In an office like ours, and that's what I started at the beginning. Is like how can a company like ours benefit, but it's probably minimal, and you can only go so far. Like when we moved to this building, literally there were hundreds of bulbs that we changed for the LED, and even though they all said lifetime warranty, I think eventually they stopped wanting to warranty them because they kept going out. But so in your experience, in your actual experience audits, what have you seen? I mean, have you seen a company tangibly seeing results, like positive results?
Oh, absolutely. It comes pretty...
Without saying any names.
Yeah, no, it's pretty clear. A lot of times they just never thought to take these actions or review these actions, and sometimes it's pretty significant.
Yeah.
And some of it's subtle, like when I was talking about where do you leave your furnace over the weekend, and some of it is they'll change the main. That was an actual example where they changed from diesel power for compressors to electric power. It made a tremendous difference.
Wow. So it's just like, I guess you have hidden costs and you just accept it, but if you actually go out and measure it, you realize, oh my God, we could save so much money here, especially on a company that uses a lot of energy.
Yeah, it's the ones that use a lot of energy. You kind of, in an office like this, you're going to asymptotically approach your, the saving, right? I mean, you're going to get less and less savings for effort after a while. But in a big facility, you can find
Yeah,
like all
millions,
standards.
I guess.
Yeah, well,
Mhm.
like all the ISO standards, you've got to improve.
Yes.
So what you do is you find different ways to improve. And first you're getting really low hanging fruit, and then you're finding different ways, and then there's always different technology that comes along.
Yeah, that's true. And actually, improving is not just to improve the status quo, but it's also as you grow, then now you can grow
Yes.
more efficiently and with less waste, obviously, right? Because that's the goal for every company is really to grow. Well, that all sounds good. Now, in the other ISO standards, we always have this top management involvement. Top management needs to demonstrate, top management needs to drive. How do they, what is the concept here of top management?
It's the same, right? If the top, it's a hard thing to just give away. They have to give away and support. They have to find the people that are ready to do it, and there's going to be a lot of
people and time, right?
and capital expense a lot of time.
Yes,
This is
probably a lot more than what you see.
You're going to look at and what the engineering piece of 50001 is engineering projects to reduce costs. So it's going to be, okay, we're going to change the type of compressor we have, or we're going to go to a more efficient electric motors, or we're going to find a machine that does the same thing but more efficiently. So it's kind of a bit capital intensive, or can be.
So this disrupting operations maybe to some extent and capital investment, but in the long run, if you are really looking for a better future for everybody, I think it would be definitely good. Well, and how about in procurement? Because, for example, in occupational health and safety, or even environmental, when you are going to make some purchases, you now have to think about whether your vendors are also good stewards of the environment, or are they treating their employees, with the proper safety? How would that translate?
It's directly analogous to that. You have to find a way that you're going to identify what are the energy-centric purchases.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them are obvious. We're buying a new HVAC, or we're buying new large motors, or new, something like that. Some of it's obvious, but that's one of the little bit of a challenge. It's the same challenge that you have in environmental or in safety. You've got to figure out a way that you're flagging things that it gets special attention in purchasing.
At least in household, when you go now buy a new refrigerator or any kind of appliance, the energy usage, and they even estimate it per year. So I think it makes you aware of whether one appliance is better than the other one. I imagine the same thing can be done commercially, I guess, or for...
Yeah, the information is usually very commercially available if somebody takes the time and effort to dig into it and apply it to, this is how we're going to use this piece of equipment.
So, about implementation, do you have any idea how long does it take?
It's the same, basically. So it's really no different than any of the other standards. So,
but in terms of time, I imagine with maybe all the monitoring and the installation of monitors, or just baseline audit and so forth, it probably could take upwards of a year to implement.
I've never seen it less than 6 months or 9 months to a year, kind of a thing. And the problem, one of the things you run into with the energy management is that sometimes the part of the year, the cycle of the year, can have a big impact, right? Like if you take air conditioning or heating, that can be a significant piece of the cost in some organizations. So it's going to be way different in the summer and the winter. And so sometimes you have to roll through a season to prove out all your items.
And it's definitely going to be different in Montana versus Houston. Right?
Yeah, it's going to be.
Yeah, I see. Okay. Very good. Excellent. Is there anything else that a company that would like to get certified to this standard, what would you recommend? I guess, where should they start?
Well, what they need to do is start by
purchasing
trying
the standard.
they got to purchase the standard
and get to know
and pay people like us.
Yes.
No, the thing I would do is I would always try and get a little bit of an idea of energy usage, you kind of take a broad strokes and say, well, is there much we can save here?
I see.
Because if you look at this and it looks like there's not going to be that much of a savings for us. Sometimes it's significant.
So if the mothership is telling you to be 35, but the savings might not be there, you might be spinning your wheels, and this could cost money and effort and time from different people, and you're not gonna get a lot. So having some idea would be good, I guess. I get it.
But several companies I've worked with, though, they've been told you're going to get this certification.
Yeah. I remember the same thing from ISO 27001. It was the same information security. A lot of that came from motherships, as opposed to really a desire. But it is definitely a standard that people will benefit from. Excellent. So Ron Sherwood, he is our consultant auditor, as well as our instructor. And he just got a wonderful review last week on Google Reviews, so I'll put it on the comments. Thank you so much, Ron, for being here with us.
You're welcome.
All right, that's it.